Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to another Webinar Wednesday hosted by CSU Bakersfield Small Business Development Center. Good afternoon. I'm the director, Kelly Bearden of the center, and I'll be your host today for webinar number 335 here on February 19th, 2025. Have a great program planned. Going to celebrate agriculture, look at a lot of the opportunities and a lot of the great things happening in agriculture. Got a couple of great guests. Got a lot of good things going on. So let's get going. And so today, what's up today on February 19th, 2025? Today, ag business is going to be our focus. So it's great. It seems like it happens this way every year, but our main webinar during the year on agriculture falls this week. And it is usually a week after the World Ag Expo in Tulare. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe agriculture is a little bit in that dormant season, getting ready to kick off and really start heading into production. But ag business really is our focus today. Got some big news coming. I don't want to steal the thunder, but I kind of already have on a new farmer network that's coming to Kern County, and we'll get into that in just a moment. We also are going to look at our economic corner. And you remember our economic corner is that weekly focus on Webinar Wednesday that looks at the economy and how the economy affects your business or you as an individual. And today, the economic corner will take on the cost of breakfast. Who doesn't love that? Our capital quarter, another weekly focus, getting you access to capital. We'll talk a little bit about the Value-Added Producers Grant that is open by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and we'll talk about some of the specifics on that. We'll have a little bit more news and information, and then also some resources out there that can help you thrive. We'll take your questions and we will answer them. Today, we're going to do two different segments. We're going to do after each of our speakers. But if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A box. So if you have a question, go to the Q&A box. We will address it after both of our speaker presentations today. Our producer, webinar producer for Webinar Wednesday, Maureen Busher-Dang, will be putting resources in today's chat box. So when we talk about something here, you can grab it almost immediately in the chat box. It is good where you don't have to take really copious notes because all of our webinars, you get a follow-up email, which will have a copy of the presentation. It'll have a list of all the resources we talk about, and that'll come a few days after the webinar is over. And I changed my mind. We do have a poll today. Yes, okay. We do have a poll. So let's go to today's poll, and it's going to have to be somewhere in the food industry. You know that was coming. And so let's do a little two-parter. Don't try to take too much time with this, but let's jump into, we just had a Super Bowl. And, Super Bowl food, really, how do you get around that? So we're going to launch today's two-part question. There'll be two questions related to food with the Super Bowl. And the first question is going to be the week leading up to the Super Bowl, how many pounds of snack food, which is defined as chips and candy, did Americans purchase? And the second part will be which had the biggest increase of that from the previous year? Was it tortilla chips, cheese snacks, potato chips, or corn snacks? So first question, how many pounds did Americans consume? I know I had my fair share. During the Super Bowl, the week leading up to the Super Bowl, of snack food defined as chips and candy. And we have 20 million pounds, 80 million pounds, or 107 million pounds. And then question number two, what product had the biggest increase from this previous year? I'll give you a hint. It's about 32%. So 32% more of this particular product. Is it tortilla chips, cheese snacks, potato chips, or corn snacks? So we'll give you a moment to jump in and to address both of our questions that we have. We do already have 65% of you participating. I appreciate your participation in this. And we're talking about snack food in the Super Bowl. Chips and candy. I know I have a grandson. I call him a gusto de mucho. And I can almost tell you that's his diet, chips and candy. Hopefully that'll change. But Augusto, telling you. So we're going to now give you one last moment to jump into the 2 poll questions and in the poll and share the results with you, with 75% of you participating. And 107 pounds is correct, and 53% of you got that right. That 107 pounds equated to about $640 million in those particular areas. So I guess it's about $6 a pound for snack food. But 80 million pounds, 40%, and 7% of you with 20 million pounds. So yes, 100. And then the more important question, of course, was which had the biggest increase. So the biggest increase from the year before, and 43% of you had potato chips. I am sorry, you're incorrect. The 36% with tortilla chips were correct. Also, 21% of you thought cheese cracks, and nobody went on the corn snacks. But tortilla chips, a 32% increase, which really kind of surprised me with, all of that guacamole and hot sauce and new ways to do chips and everything like that, and nachos. That's a huge increase. So anyway, little insight on snack food for today. It is now time to bring in Evelyn Young Spath. And Dr. Spath is the founder and executive director of the Kern County Black Farmers Association, an organization that she is starting. And last week, I might throw in, Dr. Spath presented with 9 other businesses at the Center for Entrepreneurship and Entrepreneurship and Innovations pitch competition, and actually walked away with the big prize. So congratulations on that. And to inform us all on what's going on and the opportunity that's there for Kern County Black Farmers Association, Evelyn Young Spath.
Thank you so much, Kelly. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Evelyn Young Spath. I am the former Chief of Staff at CSU Bakersfield under the administration of President Emeritus Dr. Horace Mitchell. And I retired when he retired in 2018, and then decided to follow my passion and get back into farming. So I am a university administrator turned urban farmer. I am the founder and executive director of the Kern County Black Farmers Association, a nascent nonprofit here in town. And as Kelly mentioned, last week I participated in the pitch competition at CSU Bakersfield's CEI. And that is all about identifying a problem worth solving and then coming up with a solution that has impact for the community and speaks directly to the problem that's raised. So the problem I've identified is that the number of Black farmers in the U.S. has plummeted in the last 100 years from 14% in 1920 at its height to just 1.2% in 2022, which was the last ag census conducted by the USDA. And the problem is just as severe in Kern County, where we've experienced a decline from 12% at its heyday to less than 1%. Just 0.9% of all farmers in Kern County are African American or Black. And that translates to just 28 farmers in the entire county out of more than 3,500 farmers in our county. And one of the issues, no, you can go back, Kelly. One of the issues, the key issue is that Black farmers were not able to profit from their labor and from their innovation due to the system of sharecropping, which kept them in perpetual debt. And without being able to benefit from their labor, a lot of Black families left farming to something that was more lucrative for them. And the impact that that has had on us nationally and locally is that there's been an unrealized potential of $326 billion in unrealized generational wealth in the Black community. Locally, we all know that Kern County is the #1 agricultural revenue generating county in the nation, generating some $8 billion a year in ag revenue. But that is without the contribution of Black farmers. And so we have a loss of opportunity there with the decline in Black farmers in Kern County. So the solution I propose is called Create Kern. CREATE stands for the Center for Regional Agricultural Training and Entrepreneurship in Kern. And I envision this as an integrated agricultural innovation hub, a land-based farm academy that provides hands-on field and classroom training in urban farming, production, access to land, would provide equipment, resources, and capital investment. So Create Kern, I envision as a 50-acre farm academy. 5 acres would be dedicated to training, the actual farm school. 10 acres we would put into actual production of crops that we would market and sell, value-added products. And Kelly's going to talk about that a little later. 35 acres we would make accessible to aspiring, beginning, and seasoned farmers who don't have access to land. And so we would provide acreage for them to create their farm enterprise on. And another benefit is that we would have access to investors and market connections for capital growth and strategic partnership. Who are we targeting? Our target customers are aspiring Black farmers and agricultural entrepreneurs. The age varies. It's a wide age range, 25 to 65, and I'll be 65 in a week, so I'm included in that number. Their occupation varies, diverse backgrounds, diverse educational backgrounds, but they are located here in Kern. Divided them, our target audience, into 3 segments. The largest would be folks who are going through a career transition. That's 40% of our target market. They are professionals who are changing careers and bring with them transferable skills such as project management, tech adoption, and data analytics. And you can read my slide. The second segment of our target customer is next generation farmers. They have a wealth, a legacy of generational farming, but they want to bring with that traditional farming, modern agricultural innovation and technology. So that's a large pool as well. And then the third segment is urban agricultural entrepreneurs, folks who want to get back into homesteading, growing their own food, and they bring with them local food systems, a passion for local food systems and value-added products. So what makes us different? Well, Kern County is known for big ag. We have the Wonderfuls, Grimmway, Bolthouse, Blue Diamond, so many large agriculture enterprises. What sets us apart is that we believe small hinges swing big doors. So we're into small ag. We believe that small urban farmers can make a monumental impact, not only in the bottom line for our community, but farming as a business, small farming as a business. People can actually make a living farming on small plots. Our innovative methods are, as I mentioned, small plot intensive farming, resource optimization, and diversifying our crops. A lot of our large ag enterprises are monocrops, but we believe in diversified crops. And I think that's what sets us apart. Our efficiency metrics, you can see a higher per acre revenue, lower water usage, reduced input costs, and a premium market access. So that's what the Center for Regional Agricultural Training and Entrepreneurship would be. That's what I'm proposing. Create Kern, a land-based farm academy for small plot urban farmers. And I think we can make a difference in agripreneurship here in Kern County.
Well said, Evelyn. And I couldn't agree with you more on the analysis of the larger share of medium and large farms in Kern County. And that's even true going up the entire San Joaquin Valley. Up and down the San Joaquin Valley, there are more smaller farms and there were more smaller farm opportunities for not only farm workers that worked for larger farms, but others as well. And I really have to applaud you for taking the lead on this with Create and really kind of moving forward on creating and assisting and working with you. And I look forward to working with you in the future.
Absolutely, as do I. Thank you, Kelly.
So now we're going to jump into a little bit on what is available right now. And that's one thing that's open right now is the USDA's Value-Added Producer Grants. So let's look a little bit about and I think the best way is for me to actually stop my share and to actually jump into the website. So what we can do is we can look online at some of the value-added producers grant, and these are basically grants for smaller producers in order for them to take a commodity or a product and to add value. And the definition of adding value seems to be growing. Before that, it seemed like to be a manufacturing process. Now it could be a health benefit, and it could be a lot of other ways that we add value. You know, the easy definition is to take, for example, wine grapes and then actually turn them into a finished product bottle of wine. But we've seen a lot of things with a lot of the commodities, and you know, Kern County is the #1 county in the United States for agricultural output. We have so many things that are grown locally, but we don't have as much being done with the value-added side, except for the big producers. You'll see a lot of stuff in the stores from, say, Bolthouse, for example, and other producers as well. But that's an example of how I think that there's a great opportunity for smaller value-added agricultural products and processing here in Kern County. So just real quickly, looking at this particular site is it kind of gives you a definition of, it shows you the portal, which we can go into, but it also looks at what the program does and also receives priority. And so this is the definition of where you can actually get priority. It seems in the past when we've had this presentation, the last time we had someone from USDA on was about 2 years ago. And it seemed to me like, at least with my memory, is that there's a statewide ranking list, and really working with USDA rural development out of Davis is really a critical factor in going through this process. Right now, there are $30 million in total funds available. If you do a planning grant, you can receive up to $75,000, and a working capital grant, which really helps you bring that product to market, add value, do the manufacturing, is $250,000. There are matching requirements, so there are matching funds that need to be committed, and that is to the tune of 100%. So if you get a $75,000 grant, you need to match it that amount. At this time, I don't recall if that needs to be all in cash or it can be from in-kind services that are provided at your particular farm, ranch, whatever. You see the application process. There are a lot of different eligibility issues. There are a lot of different ways that the funds can be used. The planning can be done to, conduct feasibility studies, developing multiple layered business plans, marketing plans, and working capital could be actually doing that particular processing, turning the raw commodity into a value-added product. Also, marketing and advertising expenses and inventory and salary are some of the ways that you can do that. This particular site, which you will find in the chat and you will receive also when this is shipped out to you. So there's a lot of information on the particular site that would be well if you can kind of go in there, including the self-assessment survey. Other things is that this funding was part of the 2018 Farm Bill. So there's some great things that are out there, and including the portal and ways that you can actually get started and jump in for yourself. Also, we do have advisors that have worked with agricultural concerns on this particular project. So there is some expertise here at the Small Business Development Center. And also with any federal grant, you're going to need budgets and other things. It is a lengthy process. The process is open now. It does end in April. And we encourage you to get an early start, which would be today. You will need to do some of the requirements of submitting a grant to the U.S. federal government, which includes SAM, which is a process, and also other processes that take time in order to get that grant done. But just an introduction on the VAPG. It's open now. There's $30 million nationally. A lot of ways. Would love to see some of that money come to Kern County. So if you are interested, either contact the SBDC, jump into this particular area, or any other way that you would maybe move forward to determining eligibility and funding for this particular project. Okay. And I did forget to ask if anybody had questions for Evelyn. And now you can even ask questions on VAPG. I don't see any in the Q&A box, but I will glance quickly to see if anything got put into the chat. And I see that there's been some correspondence and a lot of other good things. So thank you on that for that, Evelyn. Okay, moving back to our PowerPoint, jumping in, sharing again and going on. So one of the things that we have been talking about is with the recent disasters, not only in Los Angeles County most recently, but before that, the Burrell Fire in Kern County, has been some of the SBA disaster recovery and resilience programs. The best option that we have been working with and talking to owners about are the disaster loan operations. And those are going to be mostly the economic injury disaster loans. For Kern County and the Burrell Fire, if you have a business that has been harmed because of the fire, there are working capital loans available for you up to $2 million. And so they are still accepting those until later this year. Also, the Los Angeles fire, which we are contiguous to Los Angeles County. So we are wrapped into that emergency declaration. There very well could be quite a few businesses here in Kern County that have been significantly impacted by someone who has been affected by the fire. And if it affects your cash flow, if it affects your sales revenue, there are means that you can actually go get a term loan with favorable terms, 3.75 to 4%, also over 30 years. So there are ways that we can help you potentially recover from any of the disasters that have happened. A few of the resources I'd like to share with you is that we have the Human Resource Hotline, new law changes in California. You see the list there. The Kern County and local numbers will be in the chat. Also, we have a variety of tools that we can assist you with from our toolbox here at the CSUB SBDC. Variety of different tools and ways that we can help you, many ways. One of those is our community calendar and all good things happening. Coming up, it's the Indian Wells Valley Economic Outlook. That event is coming up on the 27th of February. It's a great, if you do business in Ridgecrest or the Ridgecrest community, they have a wonderful turnout, usually 200 to 300 people, and talk about some of the issues that are going on in the Indian Wells Valley. As a matter of fact, just 2 years ago, our keynote address today was given the keynote address at the Indian Wells Valley Economic Outlook Conference. And there's the front page of the Daily Independent in Ridgecrest. And one thing I will note is I like that title, Hegde delivers optimistic keynote address. And his optimistic address basically said we were not going to go into recession, which most economists at the time were saying. So well done, Dr. Hegde, and well done at the World Ag Expo. Thank you for chauffeuring me to and from. I appreciate that. And we had a great time, met with a lot of Kern County agricultural businesses, a lot of resources we picked up. And that brings you to where you can sign up for SBDC services. Go to our website at csubsbdc.com, and we can work with you with confidential, no-cost expert consulting team. And that brings us to our special guest today. And our special guest is Dr. Aaron Hegde. He is professor of economics at CSUB, also the former chair of the economics department, now executive director of the university's Grimm Family Center for Agricultural Business, a center providing opportunities for student research and field experience, along with the creation of innovation in technologies and coming soon value-added products. Very softly. Dr. Hegde serves on the board of several agricultural related entities and has 15 years of experience at CSUB as a roadrunner. Dr. Hegde, great having you here on Webinar Wednesday. Welcome back and take it away, please.
Thanks, Kelly. Actually, I'm on my 22nd year.
That's over 15.
That's over 15, yes. So again, thank you for having me, and also great to see you here, Evelyn. And we've been partners in crime at CSUB for a good portion of that 22 years, and a lot of the ag stuff is without Evelyn would not have happened at CSUB. And also congratulations on winning the CEI accelerator competition. So today, I thought what I would do is talk a little bit about, give you some basics about what the center does, and then some upcoming events we have, and something that probably is on minds of all the folks, which is the food inflation that we've been experiencing. And today we'll be releasing the Bakersfield Breakfast Barometer that Kelly alluded to earlier, and I'll give you a little bit more detail about what that is, and then some concluding thoughts. So the Grimm Family Center for Ag Business was actually established with a generous $5 million gift from the Grimm family, and the center engages in a few things. We like to call them different buckets. Student success initiatives, primary among them is a program of Student Research Scholar, where students are mentored by faculty on various topics, and then they present their research at a symposium in April. We cover all of the different areas that we have here at CSUB, arts and humanities, social sciences, business, and also natural science and mathematics and engineering. We also do some applied research, so there's some regular reports we put out. One recent one, there's a section we have called Fridays on the Farm, or just some topics related to farming and agriculture. The most recent one was about, since it was on Valentine's Day, the most recent one was about the high price of chocolate. So if anybody tried to buy chocolates, the price of cocoa has gone up. So it's a little bit of that. We put out a journal twice a year. And one of the things we're excited about is we put in a proposal to lease the Shafter Research Station that's owned by the Kern County. And if we get that, what we're proposing to do there is collaborate with, hopefully, Dr. Young Spath's organization and others in the industry, as well as government, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, University of California, the K-14 system, and all other partners to make it an education space to also capture the history of agriculture and then look at some innovative technologies and such. Also partnering with some possible energy companies to look at the role of the energy agriculture nexus. We also have a speaker series that's about 6 times a year when the university is in session. The next one is coming up in a week, and I'll just tell you a little bit more about it. And then we also do a lot of outreach and community engagement to various organizations, K through 12 organizations, especially the high school level, working with a lot of FFAs, the Future Farmers of America, as well as a lot of the ag programs in the high school district. And you can find out more on our website. The address is over there. Here's a flyer about all the, so if you click on or take a picture of the QR code, it will take you to the website, which has all the information. So as I said, the next, the speaker series, every last full month that the university is in session, it's on the last Wednesday. The exception is Friday, March 28th, which is a panel on wine. And then following that, we have the second year, what we're calling a SIP and scholarship, where you do some wine tasting and sample some foods and such. And all the money raised goes towards scholarships for the Ag Business Program students. The Student Research Symposium I mentioned, April 4th, and then the other speaker series. We're also working on, sometime during the spring, having a farmer's market, but you can find out all of that information at the website, and all of these events take place at CSUB itself. So the next series of the panel we're having is on water issues, Sigma and other water issues, and we have a couple of experts that will be on the panel. Mr. Alex Dominguez, who's an attorney that specializes in water, and then Dr. Scott Hamilton, who's a resource economist who also specializes in water issues in California. That's next Wednesday, 26th February from 6 to 7 p.m. in our December reading room at the library. And there's a little map over there. There's free parking in Lot C. Admission is free. So hopefully you all can make it and hope to see you there. So in terms of the food inflation, something I'm sure everybody is experienced with and has been experiencing the last few years is the increase in the price of food. We know there's been inflation, so obviously a lot of the price of goods have been going up. So what you're seeing here, the graph, it's a consumer price index, which is a measure of a basket of goods or services that's tracked over time. And the change in that basket is typically what we refer to as the inflation. And this is specific to food. And the Bureau of Labor Services, which is where you get this data from, separates food that's consumed into two categories: food that's consumed at home, and then food that's consumed away from home. So that's where you see the two categories. And then this particular thing is from January, which is the latest data that we have from the Bureau of Labor Services. And you can see that in the food at home, the increase has been just under 2%. And if you track this over the last three, 4 years, during the pandemic and after, you see that that category has come down now. So again, the inflation just measures the change in price from one period to the other. So when the inflation is lower, that doesn't mean the prices are coming down. It just means that the prices are increasing at a lower rate. So prices are still increasing and prices are still high. The only time you'll see prices come down is when we have deflation. So then the other category is food away from home. And you can see that that's relatively high. And when we talk about the general inflation for the economy, that's around 2.8 or 2.9%. So the food away from home, this is food that you consume at a restaurant, is actually a lot higher than inflation itself. And you can see within that, the category of food away from home, it's separated into two different categories: full service meals and snacks, and then limited service meals and snacks. So when you look at the limited service, these are your fast food options, like the McDonald's and the such. And the full service is the typical sit down restaurant and those kinds of places that you go. Again, as you see, there's been an increase in the price over the last few years. And if you're in the restaurant business, you probably know why that is. Part of it is minimum wage has gone up, especially if you're working in the fast food industry. And the other part of it is the cost of supplies has gone up. All the cost of food has gone up. And so obviously some of that is translated to the consumer. Plus what you saw coming out of the pandemic is the shift away from folks consuming at home to consuming food away from home at restaurants and such. Before the pandemic, that ratio was increasing, meaning people were consuming more of their food away from home than they were consuming it at home. During the pandemic, obviously that's changed around when the restaurants were all closed. And now you're seeing an increase again in something little over 53% of all the meals consumed are consumed away from home, so at a restaurant. So that again adds, the demand is increasing, the costs are increasing because of the input costs. So you see this inflation in the food costs away from home. And then when you look at the food cost at home, again, you'll probably recognize the different categories where we see this increase. The biggest one, the most obvious one, is this broad category called meats, poultry, fish, and eggs. And we'll see how that translates to what we consume here at home in Bakersfield. So the center, we have a barometer called the Bakersfield Breakfast Barometer, and we've been tracking this for the last year and a half. What it is a typical breakfast. Perhaps not for everybody, but think of a typical breakfast as 2 slices of toast, tablespoon of butter on the toast, 1 egg, a couple of slices of bacon, 8 ounces of orange juice, 8 ounces of coffee, and also a little bit of cream to go with the coffee. And then what you see in the third column there is the price of each of these. And this is a average price in Bakersfield of various stores where we price these commodities from. And then the next column you see is the cost of this particular item within that breakfast item. So you can see 2 pieces of toast cost about 52 cents in February of 2025, and then was about the same in January of 2025. So looking at just that difference between January to February, we see that the total cost of that typical breakfast went from $3.50 to $3.62, an increase of about 3.4%. And you can see the biggest increase there are in coffee, orange juice, and eggs. Again, when you look at the price of eggs, $8.60, that's higher than it's been in a while. And especially in the last year or so, the price of eggs have been increasing. When you compare this basket to the same time last year, in February of 24, it was $3.14, which is a 15% increase this year than the same time last year. And if you see on the left-hand top corner of the slide, you'll see the same breakfast we've been tracking since, this one is since a little before October of last year, and you can see the general trend has been increasing. Again, price is not coming down, but maybe the increase is less compared to previous years. So speaking of eggs, this is from the Wall Street Journal. You'll see that over the last 5 years, the increase in price of large grade A dozen eggs. The one spike that you see in the middle was when we're at the peak of the avian flu, which is the bird flu, where typically when one or two birds in a poultry house get a flu, they have to destroy a lot of others just so that it doesn't spread. And over the last 2 years, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, there have been over 100 million birds that have had to be destroyed because of the flu. That is what has led to this steep increase in the price of eggs. And you might notice some restaurants are starting to charge a 50 cents or 75 cent surcharge on any kind of eggs. The demand hasn't decreased because when you think about it, as we go with the breakfast, maybe it's a staple. So people are willing to pay the extra few dollars for a dozen eggs. Maybe they're not eating eggs as often, but for the moment, they're still purchasing it, which is what is fueling the increase in price. The other increase we saw was in the price of orange juice, which actually has been increasing over the last couple of years as well. When you think about orange juice, the oranges used for the juice come from Florida. And what's happening in Florida is a lot of the orchards are being removed and being replaced by homes, development, residential areas and such. So there's less and less of the oranges being produced. So one of the things that the orange companies are doing, like Tropicana, for instance, which is what we track in the Barometer, is they're charging the same price, but they're shrinking the size of what they're selling. So the typical, when we started tracking this a year and a half ago, we were looking at the price of a 52 ounce of Tropicana fresh squeezed juice. And over the last year and a half, instead of 52 ounces, now you get 48 ounces. It's the same price. So then we have had to change it such that we're accurately reflecting the price per ounce. So that's why the 8 ounce price has increased compared to what it was before. And then, of course, coffee, another component of our barometer. And you can see that that has also increased in the last 2 years. And again, similar reason, supply and demand. When you look at the supply side of it, the world's largest producers of especially Arabica coffee is Brazil. And they've had some issues with weather, being able to plant some of the coffee plants, as well as trade implications. So none of this includes any of the trade implications that might happen should there be more tariffs, universal tariffs against other countries. So since we import coffee, we don't produce coffee here in the mainland. We do in Hawaii, but not here on the mainland. So any tariff wars will possibly lead to an increase in price of coffee as we know it. So that is what I had in terms of the presentation. And more than happy to answer any questions.
Well, fantastic stuff, Dr. Hegde. Makes me want to start sleeping in later. It's getting too expensive to get up and eat breakfast. So we do
Nice
have
to
a lot
see.
of stuff in the chat in the Q&A box to go through. So let's first hit the Q&A box. And question number one is, will the present political climate affect the grant? And I'm assuming that's the USDA's VAPG grant. And from what I could tell, there were a couple of broken links initially when I jumped on there, and I was going, okay, well, there's an issue. But then a lot of the stuff still is there, and there is no word of it being affected. So my best answer for you today is it does not appear that it's been affected. And it still has a deadline due in April, so stay tuned. Okay, we are a farmers cooperative, a Filipino farmers cooperative located in Tulare County. How do we reach for a advisor to assist with an application? Well, I think it's great that you're applying. Unfortunately, I serve Kern, Inyo, and Mono counties, but I know the SBDC director, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Richard Mostert, and I will contact him. You can send me an email for further, so I have your contact information. That's kbearden@csub.edu, kbearden@csub.edu, and we will take care of you one way, shape, or form. How much, Dr. Hegde, how much of the cost increase at restaurants is due to food inflation versus the increase of wages? Excellent question.
That is an excellent question. Without doing a complete analysis, just based on when you think about the component of the cost that is the input as well as the wages, I would say the increased cost of wages is a bigger component in the increase in restaurant meal costs than is the food inflation. Because when you're talking about food inflation, you're talking maybe 5-6%, but it's spread out over a lot of things. And as you saw, as a percentage, it increases a lot. But when you look at the absolute amount, you're talking a couple of cents here and there, 15-20 cents, which is a lot less than the cost of wages if you go from $12 or $14 an hour to $20 an hour. So that's a bigger increase and a bigger dollar amount. So I would guess, or I would wager, that is the cost of wages that have contributed a lot more than the food inflation.
Okay, it's still time to jump in on the Q&A section. You can still put your questions in. In the meantime, we will migrate over to the chat box and kind of go through everything in the chat box. And after some wonderful greetings and salutations, and there's some links that Maureen has added, including the Kern County Black Farmer Association. There's, of course, early birthday greetings for Dr. Spath. And congratulations on winning the CIE pitch competition. So echoes to that. Also, the USDA Value-Added Producer Grant link is in the website, so you can explore more on your own. Also, we have information on the SBA website for disaster relief. So there's that information that is in there. Also, to start, grow, or transition your business, contact the SBDC, sign up at that link. Also, conference in Ridgecrest for the Indian Wells Valley Economic Outlook Conference. I'm assuming it's going to be a great conference because it always is, but they do not have the keynote address coming this year from Dr. Hegde. Also, there's a link to the Grimm Family Center for Agricultural Business. And also a question, is there a link for the Grimm Family Center for Agricultural Business Speaker February series on the water issue topic? Do you
Yes,
have a,
so if you click the link to the actual center, you'll see it says on their speaker series, and then you'll have the information on it. And if you want to leave your email address, then we'll be happy to send you the flyer, which should be available tomorrow.
yeah, some great events coming up here, Dr. Hegde. Also, let's see what else is here. Google reviews. You want to leave a review for today's webinar, CSUB SBDC business profile on Google. And next, when taking a loss, is there a way to relieve the cost of the loss?
I'm assuming this is referring to the poultry that's destroyed.
I think that was about the best way we use that. So I would say yes, correct. So
Yeah, so it's the poultry industry is a very fascinating industry. My PhD dissertation was on it, so we could spend the rest of the day talking about it, but I'll just give you the short answer. It's whatever business insurance that companies have, that's what there is. But there's also the USDA has disaster payments and such, but not all industries are covered. So the thing with the laying industry as opposed to the broiler industry is it's very much consolidated. So a lot of companies own all the different levels of production and such. So it depends on if you're talking about an individual small farmer or a company. So if it's an individual small farmer, they probably don't have any additional insurance other than what they normally would have. So I think that's the hard part. And this is where a lot of people lose the money because they don't have proper coverage. So the short answer would be there aren't a whole lot of insurance policies out there for covering that loss.
great. And further down the chat, we learn that Dr. Spath has been actually appointed the minority advisor for Kern County beginning March 1st. Wow, it happened during webinar Wednesday, I'm sure. That's amazing. But congratulations on that. That's quite an honor.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to mention that for questions like those Brian is raising, I'll be able to answer more questions as I get deeper into the position and learn more about the USDA and what they've got going on.
Fantastic. Going back to the Q&A to see if we've attracted some more questions. And we have. So let's see. Let's go from the top. Good thing we had a nice block of time for Q&A this week. So there are thousands of acres of oranges in the Central Valley. What a percentage of these oranges are used for orange juice? Wow. You know, I like to try to stump Dr. Hegde, but I think you might have done so.
Actually, I can answer that.
Oh boy.
The oranges that are produced in the Central Valley and orange citrus is one of our top 5 crops, are mostly what they call the table oranges. So they're for eating, not for juicing. One of the reasons why, if you look at any juice carton, you'll see it was produced in Florida, is because the Florida oranges are specific to juicing. And it's easier if you're located in Florida for the transportation and such to produce it. So not to say you can't produce juice from California oranges, but commercially speaking, we don't use it. It's only mostly for eating.
Yeah, and my only caveat to that would be, since I have juiced some California navel oranges this year, it has to be at least less than 1%, even though it wasn't done commercially. How's that? Okay, so keeping with the questions, and I just read them. I know. What was this regarding partnering with energy companies?
Well, so it's one of the uses we've proposed in the proposal to the county for the Shafter Research Station is to perhaps partner with some energy companies to showcase or to demonstrate a couple of things in direct air capture, and then also carbon storage using ag lands. And then there's also such things as agrovoltaics, where you put solar panels on farms, and then you try to see what all you can grow in the shades of these solar panels. So these are all some potential uses that should we be given access to this Shafter Research Station that we could possibly do.
And I agree. Is food price inflation a temporary phenomenon, or do you foresee a long-term structural change?
That's a tough question. I think part of it is it will be a while before we see a decrease in the food inflation, because again, we're talking about supply and demand. So again, when you talk about eggs, for instance, it takes a long time for chickens or hens to get to the age where they lay eggs. I think it's about 4 months or so. So that's a whole new quote unquote crop that has to come on board. Plus, with the increases in possible diseases and such, or at least we have better ways of detecting them, the supply is always going to be affected. So as long as the demand is there for food, there will be food inflation. The question just is whether it will be high like it is now, like 10 to 15% for typical breakfast, or will it be 1 to 2%, which is what it usually is. Of course, you can find good deals and such, but overall, it will probably be high. So from a structural perspective, as long as there's the demand there, but then again, one thing I didn't talk about is any possible tariffs. If there are tariffs unilaterally, then we do import a lot of agricultural commodities from Mexico, for instance. And so that would then lead to further inflation.
Okay, time for one more question. And can government intervention such as price controls or subsidies effectively lower food costs?
The short answer would be no, because when you think about the economy, it's such a complex system that price controls never work. If you think about the 70s and price controls on gasoline, all that did is created excess demand. So whenever you put in a price control, then you create shortages because there's, the demand is much higher than it is. So one of the things that can happen, if you think about food consumption, every one of us consumes food. It's a higher percentage of our budget at the lower end of the income distribution compared to somebody that's at the higher end of the income distribution. So there's always ways that where the government can do, where they can target folks at the lower end of the, similar to a few years ago when the state of California sent around these cards for gas tax or whatever they called it, where it was like $200 or $300 per household, depending on the size of the household and the income. So something along those lines would be better than putting in price control.
Well, we could keep this up. I hate not answering questions, so we're going to run a little bit longer. One of the questions, and since I am on Webinar Wednesday occasionally, a freelance economist, I have no degrees or anything, but I do it anyway. I will at least start the answer to this question. What strategies can consumers use to mitigate the effects of food inflation? And I would say, shop retailers and find their lost leaders and plan your diet that week for what they have on sale. You have a better answer, Dr. Hegde?
That's as good as anything I can say.
Let those big supermarkets decide what you're going to eat for the week, There's always good things you can cook up. Dr. Kolochi, we cannot get to your crop carbon enrichment question, but I'll be glad to take that offline and talk to you about that offline. Matter of fact, I'd like to talk to you again. And then the last question, will there be a similar farming support for wind development and farming collaboration?
Is that for me?
Yeah, it probably isn't for me.
Well, I mean, this shafter thing we're talking about, we have not at all gotten any. It was just something that the center is working on with the university to put in a proposal. So we haven't gotten any feedback yet about whether we will get, and there's others also competing for leasing this space. So if we do get, if you're fortunate enough to get this lease, then obviously we're open to a lot of things because the whole point of it is education and display and such. So yeah, if there are things, but the most common thing you hear about is agrivoltaics. Not to say that it's not necessarily that there's no other way of incorporating it, because agriculture does use a lot of energy, and it's better to use a renewable source than not. So
Well,
sorry, that's not a direct answer, but
it sounds like there's a lot of interesting possibilities that can come out of that Shafter Research Center.
absolutely.
And I'm pulling for you, Dr. Hegde.
Thank you.
So I think that is a wrap for webinar Wednesday number 335. I would like to thank our special guests this week, Dr. Evelyn Young Spath and Dr. S. Aaron Hegde, always our producer, Maureen Busher-Dang. And for all of these fine individuals, I'm Kelly Bearden. We'll be back next week with webinar Wednesday 336. Have a great week, everybody, and see you then. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for having me.